Really? Oh Lord, welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I'm your host, Jaybefaunt Leroy. So good to see all of you guys today. My goodness, I'm not sure you guys. Um, I am just trying to get my bearings right now and see exactly what's going on. Unfortunately, I'm just going to explain to you guys exactly what happened. So, I created the stream on StreamYard, and then it made the stream twice on YouTube. And so the second one I deleted, but the second one was actually the actual one because it duplicated it. So I ended up deleting that, and so I had to re-add YouTube, but it created a third stream, and so now this is the one you're watching. So I do apologize for the confusion to everybody. This glitch happened where it just instead of creating one stream, it created two, and then I deleted the wrong one, and so now it created a third. So my apologies to everybody. Thank you so very much for sticking with me. I'm going to see if I can post a poll again so you guys can take the poll again. And I'm truly sorry. And for anybody that got the wrong link either on Twitter or from Substack, I do apologize. I don't know how this happened. It just glitches. So technology. But yes, we are live. Good to see all of you here today with me. Just to let you guys know, the Jaybefaunt channel is also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you guys can find me on the JB Show on Sundays and the Sabby and JB Show on Thursdays. If you have not already, please go ahead and give a like to the stream. It helps me out very much. Be able to reach more people, inspire, encourage, and activate. So thank you very much there. Whew, what a day. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can also subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. Gives you email notifications whenever I go live, and I try to make sure that I get the accurate link for you. Upload clips or write any articles, so you guys have that there. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can also ask me a question. I'll respond via video through QBounty at qbounty.com/Jaybefaunt. So you guys have that there as well. So thank you very much for that. Let's get to the comments and say hello. My apologies once again. Let's go. And I'm late. Oh gosh, I hate this. But Zero says this guy's not going to show up on YouTube. Well, I'm here. I'm sorry. And yes, I am on YouTube. In fact, the link I posted in the chat on the other side. So if in case anybody goes there, then they can see that in the chat that and I'll be taking it out. I'll be deleting that one in a little bit, but thank you very much for sticking with me. Roger Meadows is saying, I'm here. Good to see you, Roger. Fire Rippo says, I'm here with Roger. Sean Miller is coming in, giving a salute. Good to see you. All right. We have Terry says, what's happening? I'm trying to figure it out. I'm not sure how to read that name, but says, good morning from Ukraine. Well, good morning to you. So nice to have you from across the pond, all the way from Eastern Europe. We got people coming here. CBC voter coming in saying, happy Tuesday at JB. Thank you very much. Zero is back, says, it's better to fall into the ocean with a millstone around your neck than to deny a child even a mere cup of cold water. That is not a biblical verse, but that is my personal belief. Ooh, thank you very much for that, Zero. All right. We have Austin saying, hopefully our allied forces can unite together to defeat the corruption that the United States has started into the world. Ooh. Yeah, there's a lot going on right now, especially around the world. Okay, we got Sean coming in saying, good afternoon, JB. Sucker Colette's for missing out on the last two streams. It's okay, man. Look, everybody has lives to live. Leroy says, good day, fam. All right, guys, so I'm going to get straight into this because I've wasted enough time. Let's get into the stories. This is what you guys came for. This is what you came for. All right. So we're going to be talking about 3 different news stories today. It's going to be a good day to talk about the news. And so we're going to be getting into that. So later in the show today, we're going to be talking about access denied. What's going on with Keir Starmer and Donald Trump? And is that a boat in the Caribbean? Well, we'll be talking about what access was denied to the United States, right? So we're going to be getting into that. I will also be reacting to a article that was written about Black billionaires. And this is why I say we were abandoned. And so we're going to be getting into that. And those are people who either have been and aren't currently or are billionaires right there. So we're going to be talking about that. But first, we're going to be getting into the first story about there was a scam. For those of you who are millennials, especially some of y'all Gen X and millennials, maybe even some Gen Z, you guys are going to be nodding your head along in this story. So you're going to be going, I remember. Oh my goodness. Look, this is going to be an interesting story to get into right here. Look, DARE. DARE is an acronym for people who have not lived in the United States for Drug Abuse Resistance Education. And so this was a program that was taught in schools across the nation. So here's what will happen. You're in about 3rd grade or 4th grade. And what happens is a police officer would come into your classroom. And basically the teacher be like, all right, class, this is Officer so-and-so. They're here to teach you about DARE. And then the cop comes in and then they teach you what DARE means about drug abuse, resistance education. And sometimes they'll have either a mascot like a bear or a dog, or now then towards the later date, they had a lion, and basically talking about drug abuse. And so a lot of us have went through this, right? Like how many, put a thumbs up in the chat if you actually, you know what, make it easier. Put a 1 in the chat if you've ever had to go through the DARE program. Put a 2 in the chat if you never had to go through the DARE program. But because here's the thing, I had to go through it in 3rd and 4th grade and 5th grade. And so this program was supposed to be a way to curtail, to prevent kids from getting into drug abuse and subsequently getting into crime, right? And so, looking back on it, I'm like, I don't think it worked. I just don't think it worked at all. And so, because I was thinking about this, I was just like, man, that was one program where they said that they tried to, I guess, deviate us from uh, attraction to substances and get us to be, completely abstinent of substances. Meanwhile, they had no issues with substances like caffeine or alcohol, which are also drugs. hmm So they didn't talk about that, but they talk about drugs and their types, whether they're stimulants or whether they're psilocybins or whether you have ones that are uppers and downers, and they taught you all these things. I remember a puppet show in the third grade. It was, let me see, what school was I going to? I was going to Sadler Elementary. What? No, 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 no. I was going to Palm Meadow Elementary School, third grade. And I remember they had different people that classified for different drugs. You had the pothead, you had the dude that was in cocaine, and you had another one that was like speed. And they always exhibited these tropes that you associate with people who are addicted to certain drugs, and these puppets, right? And they did this puppet show in our lunchroom, and it was like they try to teach you about the dangers of drugs, and meanwhile we're 8, 9 years old being taught about this. And so, come to find out now, I think it may have had the reverse effect. But let's get into this article. I want to get into this, and then also there's some video that I want to get into because somebody also talks about some things as well. But this actually an interesting article that actually talks about how Dare began and how it's also basically police brainwashing. So let's get into that. So it says Dare is more than just anti-drug education; it's police propaganda. So this is interesting. Let's get into this. All right. Remember signs like this? This is a Dare drug-free school zone. Meanwhile, the teachers are drinking coffee in their break room. But so it says Dare celebrated its 40th anniversary last year. Schools continue to graduate Dare classes, albeit far from a slower pace than during the program's heyday in the 1980s and 1990s. While Dare gained widespread support and resources on the presumption that it was an alternative to the supply side approaches to the drug war that relied on arrest and incarceration, many research shows that Dare was less an alternative to policing and more of a complementary piece of law enforcement's larger war on drugs. As police fought and continued to fight a drug war primarily through violent criminalization, arrest, and incarceration, their presence in schools presents law enforcement a way to advance the police mission of defending the law abiding from the criminal element of society by another means. In the process, Dare offers reliably positive public relations when reactionary police activities garner unwanted political critique or public protest, offering a kind of built-in legitimacy that shields against more radical efforts to dismantle police power. I'm going to read this part again because I think it's really important. It says Dare offers a reliably positive public relations when reactionary police activities garner unwanted political critique or public protest, offering a kind of built-in legitimacy that shields against more radical efforts to dismantle police power. So here's the point. Dare was there I didn't mean it for that to rhyme, but DARE was there to scare all of us into being more compliant, but it was addressing it from a law and crime perspective instead of it being addressed from a health perspective. Because as we know now, and they actually did know back then, is that drug addiction and drug abuse is really a health issue, not a criminal one. But they didn't care because ultimately it was about catching the bad guys. Meanwhile, by the way, the CIA was actually one of the main purveyors of drugs within our country, actually selling drugs to all of the people, especially within Black and brown communities, thus ushering in the crack epidemic that happened in the late 70s and early 80s and even into the 90s. So if DARE was supposed to work, that means our intelligence agencies were literally working against the police. Uh-oh. See, that's the problem, right? A lot of people don't realize that. Like, our neighborhoods were flooded with drugs primarily by our own government. And so when people go, well, all these people, they're on drugs and it's just because they're bad people. It's like, no. The government's bad, right? Because it's being held by big corporations who want to keep that power. The war on drugs was actually started by I was going to say Ronald Reagan. Sorry, wrong demon. It was by Richard Nixon. And so Richard Nixon started the war on drugs. And one of his advisors said that we knew that the war on drugs was a farce, but we needed to get rid of the anti-war hippies, the anti-war white people, and also the pro-liberation Black people. They had to get rid of them because they want to continue the regime change wars. And they also wanted to get rid of anybody that was fighting for civil rights. And so this is why the drug war started. It was really to shut all of us down, the left down. And so because of that, they introduced and flooded our neighborhoods with drugs. And so this increases the crime rate because people who are addicted to a substance, they need to get a hold of that substance. So therefore they need money for it. And if they don't have money, then they got to get the money. And if they have to get the money, sometimes they got to steal to get it. Sometimes they got to rob to get it. And therefore, guess what? Crime rates go up. And those drugs cost money. So guess what? Because they cost money, that means there's profit to be made. That's essentially capitalism. And they keep it illegal so that who else can make money? The carceral system, the prison industrial complex, the people who run the jails, the people who give you your special food in your commissary, the people who make the clothes in the jails. Remember, we talked about this last week. With state troopers having quotas, right? Let's start connecting the dots. And people who say, oh my goodness, well, drug abuse is a choice. Is it a choice? Yeah. But just because it's a choice doesn't mean it was not a choice made under duress. Do we need to go over the definition of duress again? Do we? Because the thing is, like, a lot of times people will self-medicate, especially when they don't have access, real, true access, by necessity, to mental health professionals. So it's all connected. We got to connect the dots. We got to click, connect the dots. Because here's the problem. A lot of times people will say, well, That's your you problem because you chose. And the thing is like, okay, then if that's the case, stop drinking wine. You're trying to escape, aren't you? The thing is that people are trying to escape pain. I'm going to make a statement. Some of you may disagree. You're wrong, but you're going to disagree. Trauma is a gateway drug. If you do not address the trauma, a person is going to try to self-medicate to deaden that feeling within them. That's just how the human brain works. And it could be through either getting the drugs from outside of our body or utilizing the drugs that's already in our body, things like oxytocin and serotonin. Right? We literally have drugs that are produced in our own brains. And it's activated by certain things that we may do, whether it's through sex, food, shopping. It could be through exercise. We access these drugs that are literally produced in our own brains. Right? So that's the case. I mean, are we all on something? Yeah. But the thing is like people are using it as a crutch because of the trauma that they have endured. And sometimes the trauma may be economic. And so this program is addressing a system that was literally manufactured primarily by our intelligence agencies that are working on behalf of the big corporations so that they can make more money. And so when you have cops now coming into our schools to teach us about the dangers of drugs, that's like being in a boat, taking a bucket, putting it in the ocean water, and then throwing it overboard on the other side. Did you do anything? No, you didn't. Let's continue on before I go on another tangent. It says Dare America, the nonprofit organization that coordinates the program, suggests that Dare has evolved into a comprehensive yet flexible program of prevention education curricula. But the program remains largely faithful to its original carceral approach and goal of legitimizing police authority through drug education and prevention. The revised curriculum still ultimately skews towards an abstinence-only, zero-tolerance approach that criminalizes drugs and drug users. Let me ask you something. When it comes to sex ed, how well has teaching abstinence, how well has that actually worked out with sex ed? Oh my goodness, man. Curiosity kills the cat, but the strategy brought it back. Let me tell you something. This is why not only teaching abstinence is probably one to be the best thing, but also teaching people how to deal with the situation if you're in it is also a great way to prevent further harm. But some people don't want to teach that. People would get mad if you were to put in the boys' bathroom a bowl full of condoms. Oh my God, you can't believe you're doing that. You're going to be encouraging them to have sex. It's like, we're trying to keep them from getting pregnant, from impregnating somebody or transferring some STI because we know that they're going to do it anyway. Now, we'll encourage them to not do it. We will teach abstinence along with safety, but we know that kids do stupid shit. If you're an adult, you have done stupid shit when you were a kid. I have done stupid shit when you were a kid. We all do it. And so therefore, in order to keep that harm from being permanent, you also teach methods and ways that are safe so that we do not have permanent harm. It's just like giving a kid an EpiPen who has an allergy. Maybe that kid had a moment of weakness and they saw that peanut butter and jelly sandwich and they were like, oh my God, this is so delicious. But next thing you know, now their throat starts to close up. Or maybe somebody snuck something in there. Or maybe somebody was dealing with peanuts and cashews and almonds, and next thing you know, they didn't wash their hands and now they're handling something. You never know. But safety is there just in case. It's the same thing with substance abuse. Teach the abstinence, fine, but also ways in which, just in case, you also know what to do if in case somebody is on something. And most likely, the response is something that is medical intervention that will help the person. Because ultimately, it's a medical issue. It fails to embrace harm reduction approaches, such as sharing information on how students can minimize health risks if they do choose to use drugs, even as research increasingly demonstrates the effectiveness of such methods and as knowledge about the harmful effects of hyper-punitive abstinence-only drug education becomes more mainstream. Let's get into this. It says there was, in fact, born out of police failure. The brainchild of Los Angeles Police Department Chief of Police Daryl Gates and other brass, the drug education program got its start in Los Angeles, where LAPD's efforts to stem youth drug use has repeatedly failed. The LAPD had actually tried placing undercover officers in schools as early as 1974 to root out drug dealers, but drug use among young Angelenos only increased in intervening years, making a mockery of the police anti-drug enforcement in schools. Recognizing his failure, Gates looked for an alternative to supply reduction efforts, which relied on vigorous law enforcement operations. He began talking about the need to reduce the demand for drugs, especially by kids and teenagers. In January of 1983, he approached the Los Angeles Unified School District, LAUSD, with an idea. Schools needed a new type of drug education and prevention program. Working with LAUSD officials, LAPD brass developed a proposal for use of police officers to teach a new form of substance abuse education in Los Angeles schools. So here's the pedigree of this officer. Gates says the program that emerged from the work was Project DARE. The joint LAPD and LAUSD venture launched a pilot program in the fall of 1983. Project DARE came at a moment when the LAPD waged a violent and racist drug war on city streets. If Gates promoted DARE as an alternative, he was certainly no slouch when it came to combating drugs. A longtime LAPD officer who had helped create the nation's first SWAT team in Los Angeles following the 1965 Watts uprising, Gates believed in asserting aggressive police power to wage what he described as the literal war to control the streets, especially in the city's Black and Latino neighborhoods. Gates rose to chief of police in 1978 and oversaw vigorous and violent war on drugs and gangs, relying on a destructive mix of anti-drug raids and gang sweeps and targeted Black and Latin youth. Perhaps Gates' most notorious statement about his attitude towards treatment of drug users came when he quipped to a congressional committee, quote, "The casual user ought to be taken out and blank." I can't say that on YouTube, but y'all can read. End quote. Gates' militarized and flagrantly racist approach, drug and crime enforcement, provoked growing scrutiny from anti-police activists who called out the LAPD for its racism and abuse in the years prior to 1991 beating of Rodney King and the 1992 Los Angeles Rebellion. I guarantee you, many of us who are millennial, because back when Rodney King was beaten in the LA riots, I was a little kid. Those of you who are Gen X were probably either in middle school or in high school at the time. So you guys remember that very, very well. And so, yeah, this is one of the guys that actually helped create SWAT teams. And he was a racist. That's who created there. All right. Now, let's go here. It says early returns from the DARE program pointed to an effective and successful program. Studies conducted in the mid 1980s by Glenn Nairi of the Evaluation and Training Institute, an organization hired by the LAPD to evaluate the program in its early years, found positive results when it came to student attitudes about drug use, knowledge of how to say no, and respect for the police. School administrators and classroom teachers also responded to the program with gusto, reporting better student behavior and discipline in the classroom. Students also seemed to like the program, especially since most of the evidence of student reactions came from DARE essays written in class or in DARE's public relations material. As one DARE graduate recalled, the program ended, "I'm sad because we couldn't see our officer again, and happy because we know we don't have to take drugs." That LAPD handpicked ETI to conduct this assessment suggested hardly an independent evaluation, a fact that some observers noted at the time. Nevertheless, such initial positive results gave LAPD and LAUSD officials a gloss of authority and primed them to make good on their promise of bringing programs to every student in the country. And they very nearly did. So it says, at its height, police officers taught DARE to fifth and sixth grade students in more than 75% of American school districts, as well as in a dozen countries around the world. Officers came to Los Angeles to be trained in the delivery of the DARE curriculum. The demand for DARE led to a creation of network and training centers across the country, which vastly expanded the network of trained DARE officers, DARE leaders, and also created DARE parent program to teach parents how to know the signs of youth drug use and the best approach dealing with their kids who use drugs. DARE, in short, created a wide network that linked police, schools, and parents in the common cause of stopping youth drug use. And it talks about how politicians actually across the board love DARE. They love this program, right? And then we also have the whole say no to drugs, like, Nancy Reagan was basically championing. It says officers did much more than just teach DARE classes. DARE officers embedded themselves in their communities, engaging in a wide variety of extracurricular activities. For instance, one officer coached a DARE track club. The other coached a football team. Some even played Santa Claus and Rudolph during the holidays to bolster their authority on a national scale. DARE administrators constructed a public relations campaign enlisting athletes and celebrities to promote the program and facilitate trust between children and the police. So basically, this was a major source of propaganda in our schools to make police look and seem in a better light, even though they were bashing my people's heads in on the nightly news. "Oh, police aren't bad. Look, Officer so and so, I see him a few days a week, and he teaches me about being anti-drug." Meanwhile, to the adults who may be using substances to cope with life, that's not their experience of that police officer being good to them or being nice to them or treating them with dignity and respect and following the law. That wasn't their experience. Hell, some of the police actually sold drugs to these people. Oh, wait, you didn't know that? Oh, let me show you. Yeah, you didn't notice some of these police were actually selling drugs to the very people who might be related to these little kids? Oh man, let me share this with you. It says prosecutor seeks to clear records of people charged with buying Broward County Sheriff's office made crack in the 1980s. Oh, wow. How much you want to bet some of these officers that were making crack inside their offices were also doing the DARE program too? Says the Florida prosecutor said he will seek to vacate as many 2,600 convictions of people who bought crack cocaine manufactured by the Broward County Sheriff's Office for sting operations between 1988 and 1990. The Florida Supreme Court ruled in 1993 that people couldn't be charged in cases where the sheriff's office had made the crack cocaine and undercover deputies then sold it to buyers who were arrested and charged. Broward County State Attorney Harold F. Pryor said on Friday that while his office was reviewing old records, prosecutors realized that many of the people may still have criminal charges, convictions on their records because of the sting operation. It says they were arresting people not for selling, but for purchasing. Wow. He said they had detention deputies posing as dealers. They would sell it, and these poor people who were addicts were buying it, and they were selling it within 1,000 feet of schools, so the penalties would be greater. It was a scam. It was an operation. You got the DARE program being taught at the school, and then they would purposefully sell it within 1,000 feet. Undercover officers purposefully sell it within 1,000 feet of a school. And so then anybody who had an addiction, which is a health issue, because they're trying to dull some type of pain or escape, then guess what? They will get arrested. And they may even be the family members of those kids at that same school. And they will get arrested and put in jail. And then people go, and then you got people going, oh my God, there's no black men in the house. What happened to all our black men? We need a father in the house. Y'all arrested them all. First, y'all make cost of living way too hard. And then because of your of the racism within the country, you guys didn't want to hire any of these black men. So then, of course, because you didn't want to hire them and it was jobs that were hard to get, especially starting in the 1970s and onward, then a lot of them felt depressed. They felt low. They felt dejected. So guess what? They had to dull that pain. So what did they do? They started using some drugs to dull that pain. And it may have even been the first time of even possessing such a thing. But guess what? They got caught up by the police. And next thing you know, because of the war on drugs that was even intensified by people like former President Joe Biden, they got the zero tolerance and they got mandatory minimums and all of that. And then they got thrown in prison. So guess what? They were out of their kids' lives for a period of time, maybe even throughout their entire kids' childhood. And then people are like, oh my God, there's no black fathers in the household. Well, because you treated drug use as a criminal issue instead of a health issue. Why were these men, in particular, why were they depressed so much? Why were they sad? Why were they always feeling low and sad and depressed and dejected? Well, maybe part of it had to do with the anti-blackness and the supremacy white supremacy that we were experiencing in this nation. And then materially, we really couldn't provide for our families because they weren't being hired because they were black, even though they may have been qualified and hardworking. Maybe, just maybe, and this includes the white people, maybe, just maybe, if y'all didn't pass things like NAFTA or permanent normal trade relations with China, which also took jobs and then shipped them overseas and then took manufacturing away. So then now you have all these people sitting there who actually have no jobs and their life is now turned into poop. And how do they cope? How do they deal? It was either through alcohol, which means that alcoholism went up, or it was through illicit drugs because illicit drug use went up because they were trying to cope, because the economic situation got precarious. And this is the thing. Some people do not want to connect the dots because they want to seem like they're better than the other people. They want to say, I've never done all these things, so therefore I'm better than you. Why didn't you do the exact same thing that I did? People react in different ways. People deal with things in different ways. Some people can't handle certain things. But that means that takes compassion, that takes empathy. We do not have a compassionate system. We do not have an empathetic system. A system that's bred on exploitation and taking advantage of people and profits over people. This goes deeper. Let's get into this further. And then I also have a video I would like to share. Let's go back into the original article. All right. So this was really just a way of making it so that there was a program really to make police seem like they're always good, always the ones who are looking out for the best in the community, when in reality, we know differently. Says the underlying goals transform the image of the police in the minds of kids to develop a rapport with students so that they no longer view the police as threatening or the enforcers of drug laws. But Dare's message about zero tolerance for drug use and legitimacy of police authority sometimes led to dire consequences that ultimately reveal the law enforcement's quite broad power to punish. The most high-profile instances occurred when students told their DARE officers about their parents' drug use, which occasionally led to the arrest of the child's family members. For those students who took the DARE message to heart, they unwittingly became snitches, serving as the eyes and ears of the police and giving law enforcement additional avenues for surveilling and criminalizing community drug use. So, DARE was also a way for police to get into your business at home. This is the beginning of surveillance. Have the kids just snitch on their parents. Here we go. The DARE snitches. The program was about education, but it was also about surveillance. Here is Nancy Reagan, and they have a whole bunch of kids. They look like to be about 4th or 5th graders. So the government was deeply involved in this. So this is the other side that people weren't talking about how a lot of kids who were taught this, guess what? They thought, well, I'm doing the right thing. And then their parents would get arrested. How many parents did we have that smoked the Jolly Green Giant when we were little? Imagine how many kids probably told them their parents. let me go to this video because they also talk about this story too. Let me make sure I have this. Yeah. So this podcast, they actually talked about how the DARE program didn't work. Let's go here to this time stamp. 12:44. Let me see. We'll start. Yeah, we'll start there. All right, let's go.
So he's not doing good things then.
No. Yes. No.
So
yeah.
he's still
absolutely not.
Corrupt.
In the middle of his career, right smack in the middle of his career, in the late 70s, early 80s, he ran a group called the PDID, which was the Public
And what's
Disorder
his role?
Intelligence
He's
Division.
the
Chief of Police.
Chief of Police.
Yeah, for
Okay.
the LAPD. He puts together the PDID, the Public Disorder Intelligence Division.
Public Disorder Intelligence. Okay.
And the idea was pretty simple. He said, look, drug abuse is an issue in our schools. It would be sweet if I had a spy network in the schools. And so
I'm telling you, I knew the second Officer Lacey came into our classroom. I said, this guy's a narc. I tried to tell the other kids. I was in kindergarten, and I was like, he's a narc. Don't trust him.
He literally did 21 Jump Street. He had undercover cops that went and were high schoolers and went to high school and were looking for the drug dealers in the high school, was the concept, literally.
Were there drug dealers in the high schools?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen like reports that said that. Most likely, probably some.
And when we're talking about drug dealers, are we talking like...
It's marijuana. It was
That's
marijuana.
what I'm saying.
Like, let's be real.
Like, it's not like...
Yeah. This thing happens.
Yeah.
The ACLU finds out, and they're like, hey, I don't think you're allowed to do that. And so this ends up becoming this massive court case, and the U.S. government, the federal government, shuts down the PDID. They're like, yeah, you can't just spy on kids in schools. And you can't send undercover officers in there without a reason in advance. Like, you have to have evidence that there's something
Yeah, there's got to be...
to send an undercover officer into the school.
Sure.
And he was so mad about this. He was like...
So, essentially, they needed probable cause, but they were doing it without probable cause. This was just, let's spy on them to see what's going on. The sweep. So the creator of SWAT, and they also covered how he's connected to, he came up in the ranks because the former chief of police before him was actually one of the people who actually destroyed all of the photo evidence and camera evidence that was connected to Robert F. Kennedy Sr. being murdered by Sirhan. And so because he had all that evidence destroyed, then that took him out of being the police chief. So now you have this guy who is basically a big old racist, and then also wanting to militarize police like the SWAT team and commit mass surveillance of us, which now we have a huge amount of militarized police before us today. See how it follows? See how it follows? Okay. All right. Let's continue this here.
I had one of the best spy networks in the public school system anyone's ever had in the public school system, and the federal government shut it down. And he was very, very frustrated about it.
Okay.
So he spent some time trying to figure out how can he replace his spy network. And he found out about the LA School Board had like a program called the SMART program. It had been running for a
How
few
long
years.
has he been chief of police at this point?
I mean, at this point, this is, I believe it was the early 90s when they shut down his PDID.
So he's been the chief of police.
He's been the chief of police for a while. He ran the PDID for a long time.
So I see how it's relevant that we started at RFK's
No, that's how
assassination.
he became chief of police.
Okay.
That's how he got here.
Okay.
And it's important because it paints the background that he was already a high-ranking official in the police department.
Okay.
So he
When
was
they burned the photos.
a part of burning all these photos.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was doing some sketchy stuff, is what I'm trying to illustrate. And then he started the SWAT team, sketchy. Started the PDID, sketchy. The PDID gets shut down, and he says, what do we do? And so he finds out about the SMART program, which is an LA school district program to combat drug abuse in their schools.
Yeah.
And they have been running for years. And this was run by the actual school board. And they had brought in and partnered with local universities to pilot programs that could actually make a difference.
Sure.
And they had attempted many years earlier a program where they would go into the schools and they would equip teachers to educate the kids about drug abuse and the dangers of it and why you shouldn't do it. And what they found is that this program was not effective at all. It actually led to an increase in drug abuse in their schools.
Curiosity killed the cat, but the strategy brought it back. How many of you didn't know what the heck these drugs did, but then you found out when you were little kids and you were like, this sounds kind of interesting. You made them curious. Darren was a scam.
And they think the reason for that is because it made it seem kind of cool.
Look at this picture of these teens on drugs. And it's just like a house party, and they're like...
So that's one piece that I wanted to play for you guys because I think it's absolutely important. Knowing the connections of this guy who was the chief of police. I want to go to this next part. Let me see and go here. Let's go to this timestamp. All right, let's go here.
Yeah, I mean, it really was. It was a suggestion box that they put in every classroom.
Yeah,
the suggestion was, I think somebody's using drugs.
Well, no, I think it was a tip line essentially. Of like, and they even told us too, like, because it was more than drugs that they walked over. Like I said, they did the whole like kidnapping thing. Yeah, they taught us about if what abuse looks like. If you're experiencing this at home, you can put this in the car. It was
which. This is another theory, one of those things where if you think about it for a second, it's like, oh, that's a good idea. You should give it.
If you think about it for another second,
you realize that what happens is first, these are children. Yeah. They don't really know what they're talking about. And so like you end up with tips that maybe aren't very true or inaccurate. Right. But also sometimes you do get tips that are accurate. And what was more common than anything out of these confidential boxes was kids reporting their parents for drug abuse. And what inevitably happens is these kids report their parents get arrested, they go into foster care because now they don't have someone to care for them. And eventually the kid learns that it was their fault. Like technically it was their parents' fault, the parent did it, but they learned they're the person who made this happen.
Well, but also like, I remember one time getting really mad at my mom while she was driving because she took a sip of her Diet Coke and I said, you can't drink and drive, So it's like, if I told I was like, my mom drinks and drives.
Yeah. Because you're a kid and you don't understand.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And so these are things where, it sounds like a good idea, but in practice, what ended up happening is it caused a lot more trauma than was necessary. And a lot of these situations, the majority of them, their parents smoked weed sometimes.
Sure.
Like, let's be honest. So it ended up being a traumatic thing for a lot of children, kind of unnecessarily. And it started to get a lot of blowback. A lot of parents started comparing it to the late Weimar Republic because of that, encouraging children.
I was going to say the 1984, like, that's, wow.
Yeah, so it was.
So, this part is also setting people up for taking them out of their kids' lives just because they partook of the Jolly Green Giant. For the most part, I mean, that was pretty much what it was. Funny thing is, parents who, got themselves a little bit of broccoli they were way less dangerous than parents who were drinking alcohol on a regular basis or who were alcoholics. But also, this shows that what if we treated this as a health issue instead of a criminal issue? What if we would have treated it as a mental health issue and said, oh, instead of sending police, get counselors for the parents who may be dealing with things? But they didn't do that. They arrested the parents, put the kids in foster care because the kids were taught, well, these are drugs, and so you have to report them. Now, did child abuse happen? Yes. But are people really looking for the signs of things like that? Or were they just looking for any and everything that they can to incarcerate more people? And a lot of these BEAR programs were especially in Black and brown schools. Like, yeah, they were in white schools, but they were heavy in Black and brown schools. We had SROs in my schools. That stands for School Resource Officer. Where you have police strolling up and down our hallways at school. Hell, I had a class about the law, essentially, and dealing with police when I was in middle school. And I went to a predominantly Black middle school. Actually, 90% of all the schools I went to were predominantly Black. But at my middle school, they put a Black police officer in front of us, and he taught us about how police operate. And of course, the different tactics and weapons that they use. Let's continue.
Was a weird program, but it spread like wildfire. And by 1990, it was in like 75% of school districts across America.
Yeah.
And
could schools opt out of it?
Yeah, it was. Here's what's really strange about DARE, and I still don't understand this.
Okay, so I want you guys to listen up to this, because this part, this shows how nefarious this really is. This program was really a scam.
DARE was started as a nonprofit organization.
Okay.
But eventually it went public on the stock exchange. And I don't understand how that happened or what or why.
DARE was public on the stock exchange?
Yes.
How it wasn't making money?
I don't understand. I do know that there are for-profit businesses that sell these experiences to schools where they come in and they sell like $20,000 a year. They come in and they'll do this thing for your school, and it's like the big event.
Now, I will say this. I have been looking for evidence of DARE being on the U.S. Stock Exchange. I did not personally see any evidence of that. However, I wouldn't be surprised if it actually happened. But I didn't see any evidence of it so far. But if you know of any evidence, please let me know in the comments, because I'm actually very curious about that. So, I don't put nothing past the cops. You know what I mean?
And
yeah, we'll kill a kid in the front yard.
Yeah. And these are legitimate businesses that do this. DARE obviously had crushed the merchandise game. And so they had a lot of great merch. After every assembly, they set up a merch table and you could buy the t-shirts and stuff. But they didn't actually sell them. I think they just gave them away. But you could buy them at they sold them at my Walmart. So I don't know.
So yes, the whole merch thing. In fact, let me share this with you guys, because they did and still do sell merch. I'm gonna show y'all. A lot of people are like, what in the world? Merch for DARE? I'm not even gonna tell y'all the website because they don't need no more money. But y'all can see it anyway. But anyways, here is the catalog that they have. And that they got t-shirts, they got plaques, they got stickers, they got pencil boxes, they got pens, they got the keeping it real when keeping it real goes wrong. They got the school supplies, right? They got keeping it real workbooks, $165 for a workbook. Not updated version. English middle school keeping it real workbooks, $155. A core workbook, $135. Then they have the classic graduation tee, so t-shirts. They got a stuffed lion, 18-inch stuffed lion, that's $25.80. Yeah, so they got these, right? So they still sell merch for DARE when drugs actually won the war on drugs. It is hilarious on its face. But let me finish this out because I want to get into this too.
Yeah, I don't know. But they did go public on the stock exchange, which is very strange. Started as a nonprofit. But their business model was very interesting because they had their board of directors at the top.
Okay.
And it was Daryl Gates and then a handful of LAPD police officers. And then very influential businessmen, billionaires were at the top of this list. Handful of people on the Epstein list. And they then would, I guess, sell franchises out to local municipalities. And they'd be like, hey, you're a cop.
So the police department would have to license the name to use that
it wasn't
program.
even the department. It was police officers. Off-duty police officers could get a side gig as a DARE officer. And so they could then get the DARE car and like all the DARE merch, and they buy all the boxes of the DARE stuff and the stuffed animals, and then they could go do it in their school. And then they could recruit other police officers in their area and in the school district to grow.
Okay.
And then those police officers could recruit other police officers to do it. And that's why it spread so fast, because it was kind of an MLM. And the way they got that model, one of the board members, the founder of Herbalife.
Got it. Okay.
And he's like, I know how to make this.
He's like, hey, I know how to make this work. You get one cop to get another cop to get another cop. I mean, within 7 cops, you got the whole police force and every cop that exists. I think
all the cops.
Seven rounds.
it's 6 degrees of separation.
But when that cop gets another cop to do it, then that cop gets part of their commission. Did it work like a pyramid scheme?
Yeah. The more people you recruited, the more kickbacks you got as the police officer. So you were incentivized to recruit more police
DARE
officers.
was a police officer pyramid scheme the whole time?
Yeah.
It's a scam, y'all. It ruined lives. It got police more overtime. They sold some merch. They had very rich people on the board. They traumatized kids. And they treated drug addiction as a criminal issue instead of a health issue. Welcome to the United States, baby. So this is why I wanted to focus on this, because this affected working people, working class people the most. This is why, and here's the thing. I am a big proponent of treating drug addiction as a health issue, but that would mean that we need to have a nationalized healthcare system. That means that we need to actually see healthcare as a necessity for life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and it should not be paywalled to anyone within this country. And so this is why I talk about changing the system and building dual power, because in order for us to be able to combat things like this, what needs to happen is we need to actually get out of this system and actually have something that teaches kids about substances in a real way and treats using substances as a crutch as a medical issue so that everyone can have a more better, dignified life. Why are people addicted to substances? We got to attack that underlying cause. And the only way we can actually do that by having a system that actually works for the people, not for the people at the top. And yes, there definitely was a scam. Let's get to the comments in chat, everybody. My goodness. What did y'all think about that? I didn't even go over everything. They go over more. I was just like, nah, bruh. These guys are crazy. My goodness. All right, gal. Let's go into the Rockfin. I'm sorry, Rockfin. The Rumble side. Sorry, old habits die hard. We do have a Rumble rant. So let's go here. Thank you very much to Jimmy Apples. Says James is best name. Thanks for being good example to people with inferior names like Wink. And thanks for being here. Thank you so very much. Oh, yeah. You're Jimmy Apples and I'm James. Okay, yeah, I get it. Which reminds me, I actually should get an apple after the stream. I think I got one more Honeycrisp apple in the fruit bowl. I think I got one more. I probably should get that Honeycrisp apple. That sounds good too. I had berries earlier today, so I should go for a Honeycrisp apple. But thanks a lot, Jimmy Apples. All right, let's get to the rest of the comments in the chat. Oh, wait, hang on. Let me check to see if we have let's see if we have any gifted subs on Kick. All right, looks like we're decent on the Kick side. All right. You see here. All right, we're good on Kick. You see. Take that down. Okay. Woo, that was a story. That was a story. That was a story. Okay. Let me see. All right, so Edward says the war on drugs was a ploy to incarcerate blacks by making it available to them to take drugs and get caught. Jacqueline says the trouble is when they make it sound like something is a problem because everybody's doing it, then the people that aren't doing it want to do it also. Hope you get what I mean. I get exactly what you mean. People got FOMO, fear of missing out. That's exactly what happens. Vicky says, my kids had dare in middle school. They wanted them to snitch on parents, even for weed. And some did. Gio says, I remember kids in junior high that did them saying they wanted to try them because of dare. Oh my gosh, that's the biggest failure ever. They messed up. Michael says, it makes no sense to stay away from drugs when law enforcement officers, policymakers, and CIA definitely played a role in exploiting Black Americans and working class people. Bingo! Michael Pan knows what's up. Flooding our neighborhoods with drugs. Oh, by the way, I find it ironic that, and I'm going to put this down just for a second, but Michael, you're going to find this ironic too. How this all started, dare started with LAPD, and now we're crying about, the influx of fentanyl coming into the United States, And who was one of the main people trafficking fentanyl into the United States? It was a white woman that was working for the LA County Sheriff's Office. And she was arrested because they found that she was trafficking fentanyl into the United States. This happened, what, last year? A white woman trafficking fentanyl. And yet they're like, oh my God, these brown people, they're bringing in fentanyl. Baby. It was a Karen that was doing it. A Karen. And she worked for the LA County Sheriff's Office. She was associated with cops. So when I show how in Broward County, they were literally making crack cocaine and then selling it, trying to entrap people who had an addiction here in Florida. It's crazy. And see, this is the problem when you treat it as a criminal issue instead of a health issue. Because if you treat it as a health issue, then you can get those people help. But then that also means you got to figure out why they're addicted. What's the source? What happened? What's the trauma that led to it? And then you start to get to the factors of the system. And then you start to realize the capitalist system is actually bad for our health, both mental and physical. And then some people go, JB, capitalism has nothing to do with our physical health. You want to talk about that and all the microplastics in your body right now? Why don't we have universal health care? Part of it is because of racism and anti-blackness, but another part of it is because capitalism, because they don't actually want people to have universal health care because that means they have universal health care. Well, then that means that the private corporations that actually own our healthcare system won't be able to make a dime. They won't be able to make profit. Boy, I tell you. Bryce Smith says, sup, JB and everyone. Good to see you. Halehon says, just say no. It says, holy ish, bro. What? It's crazy, right? Eliana, good to see you. Says 2. Yeah, okay. So you didn't get the DARE program. Thank goodness. Let me see. Edward says, a former cop, Serpico, said that today's cops are even worse than when he grew up. Cops were always corrupted. It doesn't matter what race you were. They're very much like gangs. For everybody who's watching, look up LAPD gangs. Oh, the lid was blowing up off on that one. There are literally gangs at the LAPD and the LA County Sheriff's Office. They have gangs. And they're genocidal. Deeply genocidal. Let me see here. Roger said it wasn't a secret that the government was behind it, though. Nancy came on different strokes with her Just Say No campaign all throughout the 80s. We just had PSAs all over the place. Yeah. They're like, just say no. It's just like, well, if you want people to say no, stop the trauma. Stop the economic trauma. Stop the racial trauma. You know? Roger says the creator of SWAT that spawned the original 1975 TV series. Wow. Rondo says DARE was most definitely a psyop. Yup. Had school full of narcs. Robert says they cut the program in like 1993 and 94 as a tax-funded program. Then like in 1996, 97, it came back under a private company. Don't know if it was traded publicly. I see. Thank you very much for that. Rondo says there needs to pay reparations to black folks for this BS. Keep it real. F out of here. Yo, real talk. They do owe us reparations for that, because what the heck were they thinking? My goodness. Jesus Christ on the cross. All right. And then Rondo says the gangs of New York was the origin story of the NYPD, allegedly. All right, guys. That was crazy. All right. Let's get into the next story. Before we do, we're going to go ahead and thank the patrons on Patreon, because, well, that's just the type of person that I am. I want to make sure that I thank all those beautiful people who keep this channel running. And he was running. All right. Here are the tiers here, guys. Okay, we got Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Jaybefaunters. We have Comrades, Solidarity, and JB members. And thank you to new member Morn Theart. Thank you so very much for joining in. I deeply appreciate it. It helps keep the channel going. And by the way, just to let you guys know, my channel is demonetized. So if you like to support the channel, you can support via Patreon or PayPal. So thank you very much for that. Let's get into the next story that I want to get into, because we got to talk about billionaires. And oh God, I don't want to do this, because they get on my damn nerves. They need to stop. Just the status of billionaires needs to go away. Let's get into it, yo. So you already went over how Dare was a scam. Now we're going to go, we were abandoned. Let's get into this. Black people, family, come on. We gotta have a come to Jesus moment. We gotta talk. We gotta talk about some of the people who are among us that chose to exploit us, and therefore they left us in the dust and went to go live either in Calabasas or in the Hamptons with white people, so that they did not have to be around us anymore, because they actually don't really like us like that. We got to talk about it. We also got to talk about how a lot of these people want proximity to whiteness because they want to stay comfortable. And they actually really don't want to do anything for the rest of us, because they're so comfortable in the system. And then they think that, well, I did it so that everybody else can do it too. Either that, or they're just selfish as hell. And they're like, you know what? I got mine. You got to go get yours. And that's not on me, because there is no community responsibility, only personal responsibility. They divorced themselves from the Black community. Let's call a thing. Let's stop with this. Oh my goodness, they're so special. They're so great. That's Black excellence. No, it's not. It's not. Right? And this is one of the things that I think that we really need to get to. Black capitalism will not save us. It has not saved us. It never will save us any more than capitalism has actually saved white people. Ask all the poor white people, has capitalism actually saved them? If it ain't saved them, then what else makes us think it's going to save us? The hell? So this is why I think it's important for us to really have this moment, right? I want to get into this article because I think it's important that I want to react to this article, because I think this is important for us to really start to learn and figure out how we move as a people, right? So That's exactly not what I want to go to. I'll be going to that in a second. Let me see here. Here we go. Now, this is from the Milwaukee Community Journal. It says, white comfort, black betrayal when our billionaires forget us. All right. Let's take a look at this. It says, betrayal is not subtle. It is loud in its quiet, glaring in its silence, and brutal in its indifference. The black press, born in chains in 1827 before slavery ended, built in blood and sustained by courage, is gasping for air while those who could have saved it look the other way. Those are not outsiders. They are our own. The rich and powerful among us who have traded solidarity for status, truth for comfort, and liberation for proximity to whiteness. The black press is the backbone of our collective memory. It told our stories when no one else would, when white America painted our faces as criminals and our dreams as crimes. It printed Mamie Till's anguish so that the world could see her son's mutilated body. It carried the words of Frederick Douglass and the defiance of Ida B. Wells. It stood with Martin Luther King Jr. reporting his sermons and his jailhouse letters when white editors called him a menace. Says that same black press now struggles to survive while the billionaires it helped lift into the light sit in luxury, feeding the illusion that their comfort beside white's power is safety. Now let's get into this. Magic Johnson lounges on a $138 million yacht surrounded by a world of white wealth. The same Magic Johnson who once symbolized black excellence has turned his back on the institution that chronicled his rise. Meanwhile, Mark Cuban, a white billionaire with no stake in the struggle, did what Magic would not. He gave 6 figures to support the black press. Black billionaires, meanwhile, haven't given 6 cents. This is what proximity to whiteness does. It kills the memory of where you came from. Let's stop here for a second. I'm going to be pointing out something that I think this article misses out on. Here's one thing I don't think that I think the complaints about black billionaires having solidarity with the black community and black workers at large, I think it's a fantasy to think that they actually would have solidarity with us, because if they're willing to exploit their way to get it to $1 billion, including exploiting their own people, what makes you think that they're actually going to be willing to have solidarity with us once they get to that point? If they didn't start out that way, what makes you think they're going to end that way? And they can do these little things here and there and say, well, we're giving money to this charity and that charity, but then they turn around and they claim it on their taxes and they get that money right back. They actually didn't take from themselves. It was really a tax write-off. So they used us in that way, while also garnering, a publicity of currency, a currency that they can have when it comes to the court of public opinion. That whenever, somebody like me critiques them, well, you can't talk about them because they did this and they did that and they did this thing for the black community. Meanwhile, the things they actually did for the black community are for specific foundations that are really tied to them, so that they can be able to say to the government, hey, I gave these people this money, so I want to get this money back from my taxes. And so therefore, it really was never any skin off my back, because even though that money went away, it came right back into my pockets. It's never really actually about giving back to the community. It's about taking from the community and then increasing their social capital so that you won't critique them any further. It's the same thing that people do with people like Jay-Z, with Rihanna, or Beyonce, with Tyler Perry. Same thing. They'll continue to do this and go, well, they look at how much they've done. They produce great work. And I'm like, baby, you can't make $1 billion that fast doing that kind of work. It's other things on top of it that got them to that status. And that status brought them to billionaire status because of exploitation. Just ask Rihanna. You'd think Fenty Beauty got to there just through not exploiting people? Go ask some of the people in India about Fenty Beauty. Go ahead and ask them. There were people who were going after Beyonce because some of her products were being allegedly being made in sweatshops. Right? They got to talk about it, baby. What happened to those schools that Oprah was supposed to be building in Africa for girls? My critique is of Black people who do not really have solidarity with their own people. And then you embrace a system that has actually enslaved our ancestors, and you continue to embrace that system and don't offer any type of either reprieve from the stain and scourge of this system, or try to help people who try to fundamentally change the system. It's not like some of the people in the past who, for instance, donated and worked with the Black Panther Party. Like that's different, right? Now you have these ones and they want to stay within the system because they don't want an FBI file. They don't want an FBI file the same way Aretha Franklin had one. Yeah, Aretha, she had an FBI file. So this is why the critique is so heavy. Let's continue. Dr. Dre helped to write the soundtracks of our lives. His beats gave rhythm to resistance, but his billions went to USC, a white institution that built its prestige while keeping Black students at the margins. Not a single dollar went to a historically Black college or university, not one dime to the Black press. His music screamed revolution. His money whispered obedience. What happened to the song F the Police? You'll hear them singing that no more. You know why, right? Because he has property. And police's job is to protect property. Right. It's not about protecting people, especially working class people like you and me. No. In fact, police actually don't have a constitutional duty to protect us. You can actually check that out. You can Google that yourself. That was actually ruled by the Supreme Court. So if they don't have a constitutional duty to protect us, and then you have people like Dr. Dre that don't really give a damn about his community. Hell, why would he give a damn about his community when he's actually allegedly a woman beater? And he beat Black women. So of course he's not going to care about his community. He doesn't even care about the Black women in his community, allegedly. So how can I expect more from him? I don't. And neither should you. Right? And this isn't saying that you still can't enjoy his music on, The Chronic. Right? But I'm going to tell you something right now. It's a lie when he keeps saying, I still got love for the streets. No, you don't. No, you don't. Busy giving money to USC instead of HBCUs. And even then, you don't even have to give money to HBCUs. I mean, just why aren't we uplifting Why aren't we uplifting Black people in a more substantive way, especially when it comes to changing the system? Doing mutual aid with our dollars instead of doing charity. My, what would Fred Hampton say about him? Let's continue on. Hell, what would Pac say about him? That's a great question. So, and yet we acknowledge the truth. They have every right to do what they want with their money. No one questions that. But when the world is burning and our people are being pushed back into the fields, we wish they remember from whence they came. Mackenzie Scott, a white woman, has given more to Black America in 1 week than all of our Black billionaires combined have given in a decade. She donated hundreds of millions to HBCUs and Black nonprofits. Meanwhile, those who built their fortunes on the backs of Black culture, labor, and genius have built walls instead of bridges. Now, I don't think this person is basically saying that white billionaires are better. It's that it's sad that white billionaires are doing some semblance of something more for Black people than the rest of them. My thing is, it's like we shouldn't even be looking towards billionaires, period, because to be honest with you, all billionaires, and I mean this every fiber of my being, I'm going to say it 10 toes down, my full chest, all billionaires should not exist. And I mean the status of being a billionaire, because they all have exploited their way to get to the top. Every last one of them. I don't care which one you point to. They are all horrible. I said what I said. Go cry to your big bone mama about it. And this is why it's so important for us to really focus on not just the billionaire class, but also the billionaire class that claims to be of the same stripe that we are. Because they want to still be able to look good in front of us. They still want to be invited to the cookouts. And yet, they're the reason why we can barely afford the food to go to the cookout. We got to skimp on the ham hocks and the smoked turkey leg for the collard greens because they got to get theirs first. It don't make no sense. It's one thing for the rich white guy to take our cornbread, but now you got the brother taking your cornbread too? Just because he owned the block? My gosh. They have mistaken assimilation for advancement. Spike Lee, once the messenger of do the right thing, now sits courtside beside men like Knicks owner James Dolan and Mets owner Steve Cohen, both donors and allies of Trump's MAGA machine. Jay-Z, who once spoke truth from the corners of Brooklyn, now partners with whiteness of SL Green and Caesars to build casinos while Black-owned media struggles to pay reporters. Isaiah Thomas, a Hall of Fame legend who's once the finest businessman among them, knows firsthand what the Black press can do. When his award-winning wine was shut out of major retail chain, it wasn't a white PR firm or a corporate lawyer who came to his defense. It was the Black press. One call, one email, one tweet, and the company called back immediately. They didn't want the smoke from the Black press. That's the power we still hold. If only our own would stand beside us. Instead, the billionaires remain silent while the walls close in on our people. It continues, under Trump's regime, more than 300,000 Black women have already lost their federal jobs, and the number is rising. Trump's government is fighting a judge's order demanding he restore food stamps for millions of hungry Americans, many of them Black. Healthcare for our elders has been gutted. WIC and Medicaid are under attack. Trump's inner circle, Stephen Miller, Russell Vought, Steve Bannon, and their MAGA faithful openly promised to erase every gain made by Black Americans. Now, this person is lambasting and quite appropriately, the Trump administration, but also let's not forget what the Democrats have also done. Because if we were in a Harris regime right now, would this article have been written? I would hope so. Because what Harris has done, especially to Black people in California, should be also focused in on. Or if, say, for instance, if Biden was still had ran, we could talk about the racism, white supremacy of Joe Biden and the policies that he implemented that were also against the Black community. But all of this came together and coupled together makes it harder and worse for those of us who are the Black working class. And so when we talk about Black billionaires, it should not be missed upon us to not also consider that the Democratic Party has been covertly negative for those of us in the Black community as well. So they're not even hiding their racism anymore. They fired 4-star generals because they were Black. Now, this part is, yes, focus on the part that they were Black. They fired 4-star generals, okay, but at the same time, I'm gonna be honest with you. The military budget needs to be slashed by like 90% anyway. But yes, it is egregious that they fired people in the military for being Black. Said they removed the Librarian of Congress because she was Black. They're dismantling Black leadership from the military to academia. They say the immigrants they are deporting stole the jobs that Black Americans should have, as if the only work we deserve is in the fields. And now here's the thing I will say. The work we deserve is any work that we want to do that pays a livable wage. That's the work we deserve. The work we deserve is one that we're willing to do that allows us to be able to thrive. So, look, if you paid me good money to work in the fields, you bet my Black ass would be out there. If I got paid a living wage, yeah. If I got decent hours and good working conditions and benefits, yeah, I'd be out there. Of course. But I'm not doing it. I'm not going to be exploited like that. Nobody should be. Nobody should be. None. I don't care if they came here undocumented or not. They shouldn't be exploited either. But that's the reason why they're coming undocumented. Because the people at the top want them to come in because they know that they're willing to be exploited because they're under duress. And the people who we need to go after are the people at the top who are exploiting our fellow workers across the world. This is why international solidarity is so important. Because we should not accept them being exploited, because that exploitation also leads to them undercutting wages for us. It says this is not a political shift, it is an unmasking. The same white corporations that once filled their websites with slogans of equality and diversity after George Floyd's murder have quietly pulled back. Target, Amazon, Meta, McDonald's, Citigroup, Disney, AT&T, Goldman Sachs, and others have walked away from the very promise they made to Black America. They pledged billions, then simply decided not to give it. They used our greed for marketing, our pain for profit, and then vanished when accountability came calling. Through it all, the Black press remains the only institution that tells the truth. It is the keeper of our history, our victories, our wounds. It is not begging, it's bearing witness. Here's the point. Proximity to whiteness is not safety, it's surrender. It is the price of forgetting. Proximity to whiteness did not save the enslaved, and it will not save the rich. It will only make them forget who they are and who they were meant to fight for. So now, I think this is important that we also talk about Black independent media. Because you can have Black traditional media, which can also be caught up with just trying to preserve the system, but they just want to put on guardrails, right? Which unfortunately some Black Americans want to do. They want to keep the system in place. They just want to get their reparations and then move on. They just want to get some type of criminal justice reform and then move on. And then that's it. When in reality, the system is the issue. Black people, we have to wake up. It's not a reparations or, it needs to be a reparations and, right? And universal health care, and tuition-free public college and free education, and making sure that housing is for everybody. Reparations and making sure that nobody goes hungry. Reparations and it should not, and never be an or in there. And that means we should also own the means of production democratically. Because why in hell are we going to accept a system that enslaved our ancestors and committed 2 genocides? One against the Native Americans, which we had to watch, and then a genocide against us. A genocide that was slow and agonizing against us. And then they waltz ones that look just like us out here, and they live on ivory towers, and they say, well, look at me, I made it. What did you do? I put some chapstick on my lips and I kissed some ass. No, absolutely not. And by the way, we only have a small amount of them because the system needs to have a majority of us in poverty so that it serves as a message to the rest of us. And that message is accept your exploitation or you'll end up like the rest of them. Let me share this too. Some billionaires do not want you to know who they are. Some are okay with it. But let's share some of the top richest Black billionaires. Meet the 4 Black billionaires on the Forbes list of the 400 richest Americans. Here we go. So first you have David Stewart. IT entrepreneur David Stewart is the wealthiest Black person in America with an estimated net worth of $11.4 billion. This is up from $7.6 billion in 2023 and $6 billion in 2022. So in 3 years, this person, David Stewart, amassed a wealth of $5 billion in 3 years. Stewart grew up in the segregated South with 7 siblings, where his father worked as a mechanic, janitor, and trash collector. After graduating from Central Missouri University, he was a salesman for the Missouri Pacific Railroad, Union Pacific, and FedEx. In 1983, Stewart purchased his first business, an auditing company called Transportation Business Specialist, using loans from company banks throughout Missouri. He is the majority owner of Worldwide Technology, which he and partner Jim Kavanaugh co-founded in 1990. When it comes to early days, Stewart sometimes went without a paycheck and once watched his car get repossessed from the office parking lot. Over the years, the IT service provider went to nab top corporate clients, including Apple, Citi, Microsoft, and the federal government. And in 2023, WWT had sales of $17 billion. Robert Smith. Robert Smith is the second richest Black person in America with an estimated net worth of $10.8 billion. In 2000, he founded Vista Equity Partners, a private equity firm that invests exclusively in software companies. Vista is one of the nation's best performing private equity firms with about $100 billion in assets. It has posted annualized returns of 31% since its inception. So he graduated from Cornell University with a chemistry degree, worked at Kraft Foods and Goodyear Tire before completing his MBA at Columbia Business School. Alexander Karp. Alexander Karp is one of 23 newcomers on the list. His net worth is estimated to be $4.1 billion. He is co-founder and CEO of a data mining firm, Palantir Technologies, which received early backing from CIA Investment and ARM Incutel. He met Palantir co-founder and billionaire Facebook investor Peter Thiel at Stanford Law School. So here we have a Black billionaire that is associated with not only mass surveillance, but also with a Zionist. Zionism is also white supremacy. Do you hear the trash pandas chirping in the background now? I bet you do. Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is a former professional basketball player, widely considered one of the greatest all-around players in history. His career salary totaled $90 million, but he has earned $2.4 billion pre-tax from corporate partners such as Nike, Hanes, and Gatorade. He became part owner and head of basketball operations for the Charlotte Hornets, then named the Bobcats in 2006, and bought a controlling interest in 2010 before selling his majority stake in 2023. Jordan also owns 23XI Racing in the NASCAR Cup Series. In September 2020, he joined sports betting firm DraftKings as a special advisor to the board and investor. So, 4 richest Black billionaires in the Forbes 400 richest Americans. Black excellence is a phrase that is used to promote individualistic pursuits of wealth and power while leaving the rest of the people that they are a community with in the dust. Many of these people who are Black and very wealthy will pull up the ladder behind them. And when it comes to changing the system, they get scared because they want to keep the system as is. So this is why it's important for us to walk away from this system, because it doesn't give us any dignity. It doesn't help us collectively as a people to be able to get the true repair that is due to us, that is owed to us. And people will continue to point to them as examples as to why we don't need or deserve it, reparations, when in reality, we do need and deserve and are owed reparations. And they're being used to argue against it. On top of that, what did they do to get to where they are? What type of labor does Nike use in order to make those shoes? Do they pay their manufacturers, the people on the floor, a livable wage to make those shoes? Do they pay the people on the factory floors to make that Gatorade? And so this is why it's so important for us to focus on class solidarity, including in the Black American community. There needs to be solidarity amongst freedmen. And the classism and looking down on others simply because they don't make six figures, or looking down on other Black Americans because they may have a secondary or tertiary identity, being someone who may be neurodivergent, or somebody who may be a little zesty. Or we may look down or look at our women and femmes who are freedmen as they got to play their roles, so they have to be less than position. Or those that may be trans among us. Are we looking down on them, and then we ruin the solidarity that we should have as people? We also have to get rid of the bigotry that's in us too, because we got to fight against this system. We should work to end even having Black billionaires and trade it for something that's even more valuable. A world that is beneficial, equal, equitable, and egalitarian for all of us. Because we need to fight for liberation for all of us, not just stand and glaze just a few of us at the top. Go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you very much for all that. Let's go into the comments in the chat, and then we shall move on. Move on. All right. All right, let's go into here. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think I caught up. Perfect. So, I don't want to butcher your name. I'm sorry if I mess it up. But is it Aris? Please correct me in the chat. It says, how come Cuba under 60 years old embargo can have free healthcare and the U.S. no? Great question. Great question. In fact, why is it that the United States, being the richest country in the history of the world, it actually has an economy that collapses every 4 to 7 years, and yet Cuba is under heavy sanctions and blockades, and yet they still keep a socialist system going as we speak? Somebody is more resilient than us. I'm just saying. I mean, the verdict is there. 60 years? Come on. All right. All right, let me see. Jacqueline says, if everyone could be a billionaire, then this world would be totally effed. Actually, if everybody were billionaires, then nobody would be billionaire. Because then that means everybody has equity and equality. And in order to have billionaires, you have to have somebody that makes a lot less. And you have to have a lot of people that make a lot less. Because then that status doesn't really have power and weight. Terry says, sadly, we all have been colonized and must decolonize our minds. Bingo, Terry. Bingo. Absolutely. Chris says, hello, hello. Hello, hello to you, Chris. All right. Edward says, I hate when I hear about billionaires donate their money to organization when they just do it for a tax write-off. To me, it's counterfeit generosity. And let's also add that a lot of these billionaires will start the nonprofit and then they will donate to the nonprofit, which is their own organization, and then claim it on their taxes. Anyway. Yep. Rondo says, optics. Absolutely. Jacqueline says, or we can start talking about pitchforks and guillotines. Could you imagine, Jacqueline, someone like oh my God, what's her name? Oh my God, what's her name? Hang on, I'm blanking on her name. Martha Stewart. Can you imagine Martha Stewart doing like a class on how to create a guillotine? She's just like, I'm going to show you how to make the perfect guillotine. Okay, this is how we're going to do it. And it's so sharp and it's so clean. It has a beautiful edge to it. And then we're also going to decorate it with a beautiful floral motif. Isn't that lovely? That's a good thing. That would be hilarious. That could be a skit. Anyway, let's continue. Black Ronin says, if white billionaires are giving money to black press and black billionaires are not, that means the black press is now compromised. You got a point. You got a point. You got a point. They might be a little bit. Rondo says Bezos' ex-wife is out here giving HBCUs hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, here's the problem. HBCUs also, they might have some relationships with Israel. And Israel don't like black people. Go ahead. Look at what they did to Ethiopian Jews. Look at the videos of how they treat black people in Israel. Oh, they don't like black people there. Cristino says, hold smoke for all these rich MFers. boy, I tell you, Cristo, I got the wood burning, baby. I got the wood burning. Edward says, we have this problem of worshiping the Oprahs and Little Waynes of the world when they do nothing for the black community. Crystal says Biggie and Dr. Dre are biggest traders because they are actually from the street. Tupac actually went to an art school for acting, I think. Yeah, but Tupac wasn't also rich either. There are a lot of kids who are from the streets who also went to performing art schools too. But the difference is Tupac actually wanted to really change things and provide really a resurgence of the Black Panther Party so that we can actually can change the system for the better. So, that's one reason why I still respect Tupac down to this day, because he was actually about changing things for just not just the Black community, but America as a whole. No, he was Tupac was the godson of Assata Shakur. And his mom, Afeni Shakur, she was also a Black Panther. Sherry says Billie Eilish said it best. What did she say? Let me see. Even Bruce Wayne and Anthony Stark, JB, but they're the good guys. A weapons manufacturer and a friend of Commissioner Gordon, despite Gotham City Police Department being full of corruption. Yep. Dave L says, first rule of improv, yes, and. I love JB. Oh, thank you. Love you back. Love you back. Oh, gosh, that was horrible. Michael Penn says, slavery at Nike. Hey, Nick is in the chat. Good to see you. I'm coming from RBN. Thank you very much. Good to see you. All right, let me see here. Paul Green says Michael Jordan is a billionaire funding the prison industrial complex. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Oh my goodness. He didn't make all that money just by eating ballpark hot dogs on a commercial. By the way, them ballpark hot dogs were not that good. They were kind of trash. Give me the soubrettes. The beef ones or the Nathans. Either the Nathans or the soubrettes. Ooh-wee. Especially when you put them on the grill, they start to blacken a little bit. Then you take some sauteed onions and some French's yellow mustard, and then a little bit of sweet pickle relish on a steamed bun. And then you take the steamed bun, you put it flat on the grill so it toasts underneath. I haven't had a hot dog in a long time. Wait, when was the last time I had? I haven't had a hot dog in years. Well, damn. That might be my treat meal this weekend. Oh my goodness. I had to think about it. Sela says billionaires, millionaires, trillionaires, and are bloodsuckers. That's what Malcolm X said. He said, show me a capitalist, I'll show you a bloodsucker. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's get to the chat. I'm sorry, not chat, but let's get to the final story. We're going to be talking about some foreign policy, y'all. Got to get into it. Got a story. All right. So let's get into this. So first we talk about how Dare was a scam. We ain't falling for that no more. Then we talk about we were abandoned. We got abandoned by these black billionaires. But now we're going to talk about access denied. Boy, we got to talk about it. The United Kingdom said no. They said, you cannot have this information. They said you will not pass. Let's get into this, y'all, because this is an interesting story I found out. And I was just like, what in the hell is going on? Now, I will say this. I might have to kind of like shield the video a little bit because they're going to be showing some images that I can't really show. But this is going to be, this is a big story. Now it says exclusive UK suspends some intelligence sharing with the US over boat strikes. So let's get into this. So, let me see. All right, so let me make sure I get this correct. So we'll get into this right here, right now.
To the Situation Room, watch this. The United Kingdom is suspending, listen to this, suspending some of its intelligence sharing with the U.S. because of the Trump administration's strikes against alleged drug boats in the Caribbean.
We are joined now by senior White House reporter Kevin Liptak and CNN national security correspondent Natasha Bertrand. Natasha, to you first with this exclusive reporting. I mean, this is a big deal. The UK is arguably the closest ally to the United States when it comes to intelligence sharing. What else do we know?
Yeah, Pam, it's a really significant rupture here. Essentially, what we're learning is that the UK is no longer sharing intelligence with the US about these suspected drug trafficking vessels in the Caribbean because it does not want to be complicit in the US military's strikes on these drug vessels and believes fundamentally that the US military's use of force against these vessels violates international law, according.
So, of course, and yeah, I got to kind of take that away for a second, but the UK is basically like, whoa, United States, you guys are in some stuff we just can't get into. What are you guys doing? Keir Starmer's like, yeah, we out. We out. We can't be doing that. Because what do you mean you're carrying out boat strikes against people in the Caribbean and you're doing war crimes over there? We don't want part of that. The intelligence, yeah, we're not going to be sharing that with y'all. Y'all crazy. Here you have a U.S. vassal state, and look. Let's be real, right? All the countries in the G7, except for the United States, the other 6 of them, they're vassals. They're servants of the United States. They're not their own independent countries. They're the henchmen. That's what they are, right? They're the scratch and grounder of the U.S. If you know, you know. They're the Goldar and Scorpina. You know, they're the bebop and rocksteady of the United States. If you know, you know. This is the problem with these vassal states. And now one of them just gets a little bit of intestinal fortitude, right? One decides that their testicles drop just a little bit, and now they're like, "Wait, we can't do that. No, put it back, baby, put it back." You know, and so it's kind of funny how it's like, wait, but y'all were the vassal state of the United States that also was part of the war on terror, that also committed atrocities against people in Iraq that was murdering over 1 million of them. I mean, don't you guys remember Tony Blair? But they saw exactly what happened in Palestine, so now they are scared. They're scared. And they see what the United States is doing. They're like, yeah, we can't do that. It's interesting, right? So I'm going to keep playing, but I'm not going to share the video portion. Please let me know, like, if I'm full screen like this, can you guys still hear it? If you guys can, then yeah, I'll keep it up until that part goes away. But I just want to make sure that I don't share some of these images, because yes, it's kind of like radar-ish images, but I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube, so that's why I'm keeping it like this. So please let me know if you guys can still hear.
To multiple sources that we spoke to. Now, previously, the UK had been happy to help the United States locate and interdict vessels that were transiting the Caribbean that appeared to be trafficking drugs. But the key difference, of course, is that it was helping the Coast Guard intercept those vessels, arrest those on board, seize the drugs, and allowing these individuals to have some semblance of due process. But now, the US, of course, has started striking these boats unilaterally with military force, killing everyone on board. The total now for number of people killed is around 76. And we're told that the UK is deeply uncomfortable with that, and they believe that it is pretty blatantly illegal. Now, it is unclear exactly how long this intelligence sharing suspension is going to last, but we're told that it has been going on for well over a month now, essentially since the US began its bombing campaign, and it really underscores the continued questions surrounding the legality of this US military campaign, which of course the US government, the Trump administration, has insisted is part of an armed conflict that it is waging against cartel members and criminal organizations. But much of the international community, as well as legal experts inside the US, do not see it that way.
So it's really about the United States continuing the illegal actions that it's carrying out against different countries that it really wants to take over through imperialism. And ultimately, this is about going against Venezuela, because the United States, particularly the Trump regime, wants to go against Nicolas Maduro and his administration in Venezuela, ultimately because of the resources that Venezuela has. Venezuela actually has the largest oil reserves in the world, even larger than those of Saudi Arabia. So, of course, because the United States has a partnership with Saudi Arabia, essentially the United States really is the tail that wags the dog of Saudi Arabia. So then they can actually get that oil from them. It's a bit shaky now, because especially what the United States is continuing to fund the genocide in Palestine and occupied Palestine. But now the United States wants to set its sights on the largest one. They want that big whale that is Venezuela. And so they're trying to be able to put in their own vassal. They tried to do it with somebody like Juan Guaido. They failed miserably at that, because really Juan Guaido was just laughed out of the room, so to speak, in Venezuela. Now you have Maria Corina Machado, that is actually also just as, if not even more genocidal, even more Zionistic and demonistic in her pursuits to try to run the country, because she really just wants to be a puppet of the United States, because, well, girl's got to pay the bills. And so she wants to have that position where she's in Nicolas Maduro's place. And so because of that, she is also trying to lead the opposition. But the people of Venezuela, they smell the BS. They're like, no, not her, not at all. And so the world's trying to clean up Corina Maria Machado. They're trying to clean up her image by saying, oh, we're going to give her the Nobel Peace Prize, right? Because she's so peaceful that she actually called for, the bombing campaigns on her own people and people taking over her own government, and also the bombing campaigns in Israel. She's so peaceful that she's done things like that, which is absolutely ridiculous. And so this is really what it's about. It's about regime change so they can get hold of resources and then also command a presence in the region, just like they do within West Asia. So the proximity in Venezuela has proximity to places like Colombia, as well as Venezuela being in the northern part of South America also has easy access to the Caribbean. So they might also be able to have access to the islands a little bit more. They will also have access to all, other countries, that may resist U.S. hegemony and occupation, like Bolivia, and also like Brazil, really, because the United States also has it out for Brazil, because they actually do not like Lula da Silva, despite Lula being kind of a centrist, in my opinion. But they really just do not want anyone in the global South to actually have any power that is really the power of the people, that being more socialist leaders, more left-wing leaders. And this is really part of the Monroe Doctrine. So the Monroe Doctrine basically treats the entire Western Hemisphere as their own little playground. And so that's basically what the United States is doing. They want to apply the Monroe Doctrine throughout the rest of the global South within the Western Hemisphere. And this is exactly part of the ploy to do it. It means risking the lives and destroying the lives of people who largely are just fishermen that are just trying to make a living in the Caribbean. And so it's at that cost as well as they also don't like the fact that people like Gloria Steinbaum is doing more for the people of Mexico, versus they actually want more of a Javier Milei instead, so that they can be able to puppet and say, hey, do this, and then and give us their resources so that we can be able to uplift our billionaires so they can own more of the world. So that's exactly what's going on. This is the whole reason why we're seeing what's going on, especially within the global south. So let me continue on. And I hope you guys are able to still hear when I'm full screen. So if not, then just let me know. But let's continue on with this.
Stand by, Natasha. I want to bring in our White House reporter, Kevin Liptak. How is the Trump administration responding to this extraordinary move by the United Kingdom?
Yeah, and in Natasha's reporting, it's clear that the White House hasn't commented on this particular suspension, but it's clear that the administration has not been deterred in this strategy so far. You know, the president and top officials have insisted that these boats are ferrying drugs and that the intelligence bears that out. And you have seen them over and over again target these boats in the Caribbean Sea, you know, multiple times per week. Now, this question of the intelligence is not necessarily a new one. You've heard a real outcry from members of Congress at what was initially a relatively slow pace in delivering them briefings on what the rationale for these actions were. You have seen that ramp up over the last few weeks, but Democrats at least have not been convinced. You know, they've emerged from these briefings saying that the intelligence was relatively thin and sort of firm in their view that the administration's actions are illegal. I think this will also raise some questions about what the U.S.-UK relationship is and where precisely it stands. You know, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has spent a lot of time trying to maintain a relationship with President Trump, trying not to upend what is, you know, the quote special relationship. And we should note this comes at another moment of tension between the U.S. and the U.K. as the president sues the BBC for allegedly doctoring an interview that aired on the Panorama program. And so you do see those tensions building there as well. You know, the president has raised in the past the prospect that the campaign in Venezuela could potentially expand to land strikes in that country. He hasn't made a decision on that front yet. He has offered somewhat contradictory views. He told 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago that he did not think that that would happen. But clearly the U.S. is engaging in this massive military buildup in the region. Now, with the revelation that the U.K. has suspended intelligence sharing, it all leaves open the question of where potentially this is all leading.
So, yeah, this whole notion that Donald Trump is a peace president, it was all BS. It was all bluster. It was just a means to garner more support from the MAGA crowd, from Trump voters, because they're sick and tired of regime change wars. They're sick and tired of money going towards wars instead of actually being provided for the American people. And so Donald Trump knows this, and so he's going to try to finagle this to say, well, they're making our country worse, when in reality, Venezuela, when it comes to drugs, because that's really what it's supposedly about, Venezuela really does not traffic any drugs at all into the United States. I think the amount of drugs that probably get trafficked from Venezuela is probably less than 5%. A huge chunk of drugs that actually comes to the United States comes through from places like Colombia, and even then, the amount of drugs that come from Colombia has been drastically reduced because the president, Gustavo Petro, has actually lowered the amount of illicit drugs that are being manufactured in places like Colombia. And then on top of that, you have a lot of the drugs that are coming through more vassals from the United States, like Ecuador as well. And so, because they're coming from these other countries, you know, it's coming from the vassals that the United States are partners with, that are cool with. And so it's just like how a lot of people will say, oh my God, this person is an agent of Qatar, but Qatar is actually a partner of the United States. So what are you guys complaining about? But because they're brown, that means there's something wrong. It's the same thing, right? A lot of the drugs are coming from U.S. vassals in South America. And so, but they try to blame it on another country that somehow has a either left wing or a socialist leader And so then they're like, oh, well, they're the ones who are actually doing it. Meanwhile, their drug use, production, and consumption is a lot lower because they actually tackled the drug problem, not necessarily by just being super tough on drugs, but they actually fixed a lot. They're fixing a lot of these social issues that cause people to feel the need to produce or consume more drugs. And so people don't feel the need to do it. So they're like, hey, I got a decent job. I don't need to do this illegal stuff. So that's how it works. We can do the same thing here, but they don't want to. And that's the problem with the United States, that they just wanted to keep coming in. Also, by the way, the fentanyl that they complain about actually doesn't really come here from South America. And it's not coming by boat. It's coming through the southern border. Yeah. And so why do we have a country that is murdering fishermen in little speedboats in the Caribbean? Why is our country murdering fishermen from places like Trinidad and Tobago? Why do we have a country that is essentially trying to hold the Caribbean hostage even further than what it has already? Like, for instance, like Cuba's been in a blockade for over 60 years, an embargo for over 60 years. You got the United States, Canada, and France that are basically holding Haiti hostage, trying to extract as many resources out of that country. Jamaica just went through a massive Category 5 hurricane within the last 10 days. So they're dealing with that. So what are we doing here? And this is why the UK is like, look, you guys are committing war crimes. The Caribbean just went through a massive hurricane. They don't need people to be murdered by this military nuclear superpower illegally, right? Let's continue on.
Yeah, some very serious questions now. Natasha Bertrand, Kevin Liptak, thank you so much. Big deal.
And let's get some analysis right now. Joining us, CNN military analyst, retired Colonel Cedric Layton. Colonel Layton, thanks so much for joining us. Based on my experience, this marks a very significant break from the U.S.'s closest ally, Britain, and intelligence sharing partner. I don't remember a time when Britain has publicly announced it was suspending intelligence cooperation in a certain area because it suspects what the U.S. is doing was illegal. Are you surprised?
Oh, yes. I'm surprised that it has come to this stage right here, but I'm not surprised with the British action, Wolf. The British relationship, the intelligence sharing relationship that we have with the Brits really goes back all the way to World War II and even before that to some extent. So this is a very significant break in that relationship. It's part of the Five Eyes program, basically a bunch of countries, including the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States, all working together. And basically what they've done is they've split up the world in different areas, and they use resources. In essence, it's a resource sharing arrangement plus an intelligence sharing arrangement. And it's particularly noteworthy within the realm of signals intelligence, but it also goes into the realm of human intelligence and other technical intelligence disciplines. So this is very significant because the British have a very robust intelligence capability. That intelligence capability extends into the Caribbean. A lot of British territories, as Natasha reports, are part of this. They have intelligence sites in those territories, and they provide basically a clearer picture of the types of events that are going on in the Caribbean and in the adjacent waters. So this lack of intelligence support from Britain is going to have a significant impact on the accuracy of the intelligence that the US uses in prosecuting the so-called war on drugs. So this is a major, major issue.
Do you remember it?
And so one of the things that also has to be remembered is that if Britain is basically getting bigger for their britches, so to speak, with this, my question is, what is the next country to follow suit? Because if the United States sees this and they don't do much about it, then this could be a sign to other US vassals that are more lax on pursuing this war on drugs. Or really, it's a false war on drugs, but if they were to not want to participate and they cease giving intelligence or sharing intelligence with the United States, if they see that the UK came out unscathed, that may give them a little bit more bravery into doing the same, which it could spell doom for the United States when it comes to further intelligence. Now, this is just for this particular case. This is not for other cases involving different countries in places like West Asia or Africa, or even in South America. So, of course, the CIA and MI6 will continue to have their robust relationship in other areas. But this could be a crack in the hole. This could be a chink in the armor. Let's hope it is, because, to be honest with you, the CIA doesn't have a great track record when it comes to democracy and human rights. I want to share this as well, because I was looking up some news regarding this, and I highly recommend people go to antiwar.com, because antiwar.com is a great resource for all the gatherings of different news media analysis regarding different things with military conflicts around the world. But I want to share this too. So it says UK suspends intelligence sharing with US over deadly Caribbean strikes. So UN Human Rights Commissioner Volker Turk called these strikes extrajudicial killings, and Britain agrees with this assessment. The decision to stop intelligence sharing reflects London's long-growing skepticism about the legality of American actions and opens a rift with its key ally. Canada has taken a similar stance, continuing to cooperate with the U.S. Coast Guard, but not wanting its data to be used for deadly strikes. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Y'all see? It's growing. It's growing. My goodness, look at this. Wow. They are basically saying, nope, we're not sharing. We do not want to share this information any longer. Even Canada is saying, you guys are getting a little out of control. Let's continue in here, because I want to share this as well. And this is the article that was shared by antiwar.com. It says Trump has accused boat crews of being narco-terrorists. The truth, AP found, is more nuanced. So it says one was a fisherman struggling to eke out a living on $100 a month. Another was a career criminal. A third was a former military cadet. And a fourth was down on his luck bus driver. The men had little in common beyond their Venezuelan seaside hometowns, and the fact that all four were among more than 60 people killed since early September, when the U.S. military began attacking boats that the Trump administration alleges were smuggling drugs. President Donald Trump and U.S. top U.S. officials have alleged the craft were being operated by narco-terrorists and cartel members bound with deadly drugs for American communities. It says the Associated Press learned the identities of the four men and pieced together details about at least 5 others who were slain, providing the first detailed account for those who died in the strikes. The dozens of interviews in villages on Venezuela's breathtaking northeastern coast from which some of the boats departed, residents and relatives said the dead men had indeed been running drugs, but were not narco-terrorists, nor leaders or cartel or gang. Says most of the 9 men crewing for such a craft for the first or second time, making it at least $500 per trip. Residents and relatives say they were laborers, a fisherman, a motorcycle taxi driver. 2 were low-level career criminals. 1 was a well-known local crime boss who contracted out his smuggling services to traffickers. The men lived on the Paria Peninsula in mostly unpainted cinder block homes that can go weeks without water service and regularly lose power for several hours a day. So here's the thing, right? Let's say hypothetically, and here's the map, but let's say hypothetically that they all were drug dealers. Let's just say hypothetically they all were drug cartel dealers. It was still illegal to murder them. I know. But there's this thing called rule of law. There's this thing called due process. That's a thing. And yet our country wants to murder people out of suspicion. What makes Donald Trump different from Barack Obama? And so this is the thing, right? If somebody says that we are a nation of laws and we need law and order, but that person is not willing to follow the law and apply order, then the hypocrisy is so strong that what's the point of even following anything they say? What is the point of believing anything they say? He doesn't care about law and order. He just said it to make you feel some kind of way. And this goes for every U.S. president, every U.S. president, because they all do it in some way, shape, or form. They have all been guilty of doing something illegal and committing crimes against other people, war crimes, horrible things. Yes, even the beloved Jimmy Carter, all of them, every single one. And so this is why I put that picture of a nervous looking Keir Starmer up there. Because he's probably looking at Trump and going, oh, okay, I got some guts here for doing this, but what's Donald going to do next? And so ultimately what has to happen is Donald's not going to be happy. And if he hasn't said anything by today, it'll definitely be tomorrow. It may come out as a post on Truth Social or a tweet on Twitter, or he may say something about in front of the cameras, but he wants that oil. That's what Donald Trump has said. Ultimately, it's not about spreading democracy or making the world a safer place. It's making the corporations richer. He's not that much different than Joe Biden and the rest of the Democrats. Politics as usual, which is deadly for many people. So this is why it's important for us to keep focus on what's really going on. Also, the cartels, this whole war on Venezuela, is also why it's also creating conditions. And I was listening to Ben Norton about this, but it's also creating conditions for people to say, oh my God, these Venezuelans, they're coming here and they're making our country worse. When in reality, that's actually not the case. They're actually not the ones who are bringing in all this crime. There may be a couple people who have done crime, in their home countries, but the majority of them are not like that. And so it's being used as a scapegoat so that you justify in your mind and heart the extrajudicial killings of people in the Caribbean. It's the same thing that they did with the war on terror. This is just the war on terror 2.0. They want you to feel okay with the extrajudicial killings and abuse of people who are brown. That's ultimately what it is. It's a psyop. Because ultimately, who is to help? It damn sure don't help us. But it's definitely going to help the billionaires to get more of the resources from a country that they want to own. All right, guys, like the stream. Let's get into the comments, and then we will be on our way out. Not out, out. All right. All right, guys. So looks like we're good on the Rumble side. Let's get into let's see here. Sila says, hooray, it's about time some European nations stand back and away from this madness. Yeah, I mean, better late than never, I guess. Jason said, all these allies withholding intelligence from one another sounds good to me. Yeah, pretty good. Fire Ripple says, LMAO, this is where they draw the line. Genocide's fine, though. Right? Good one. Like, y'all couldn't draw the line 2 years ago? Jacqueline says, thanks for the info about Tupac. You're very welcome. You're in the UK too, Jacqueline. Says, wow, Starmer must be really running scared. Thing is, the person he's most scared of is Nigel Farage, would share that intel in a second. Woo! All right, man. Sean says the UK always be tripping on that stuff. You're welcome on the gifted subs. Not sure how to actually subscribe on Kick though. Oh, wait. What? Oh! I got my first gifted sub. Oh my goodness. How cool is that? Wait a minute. Hold on, Sean. I've never had one before. This is cool. All right. Thank you very much. So, Sean Rockers, thank you very much for the gifted sub. Appreciate it. If you guys want to also become subscribers on Kick, you guys can also do that too. I will put that in the chat so you guys can also subscribe to my Kick channel. I'm also on Rumble as well. Let me do the Rumble too. Let me see. Hang on, let me see this. Can I share? And I'll just do it right here. All right, now go back. Okay. So you guys, if you guys would like to subscribe to my Rumble or to the Kick, you guys got that there. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it very much. All right. So Vicky says bean soup with beans from my garden and lots of veggies and chicken on the stove, quinoa on the side. At my daughter's house, she's recovering from surgery. Oh, tell your daughter I said I wish her a speedy and easy recovery. And also, protein is great for recovery. Trust me, I know. Plenty of protein and also vitamin C. Bell peppers also have a lot of vitamin C, by the way. By the way, I'm just suggesting these. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. So I'm just going off of just what I know. And so take everything when I say with a grain of salt. And also watch funny stuff. Laugh. Laughter definitely helps, lower the cortisol levels and raises the oxytocin levels. So helps promote healing. So laugh a lot, especially when you're sick. If you're sick, put on some funny stuff. Laugh your butt off. All right. And JB loves you. Oh my goodness. All right. Thank you guys so very much. All right, guys, I got to go because I am above my time, but I just want to thank you guys. Now, I was going to do a special announcement, but things got moved back. And so hopefully I'll be able to give this special announcement soon. But it is going to be something great and it's going to be something special. But I just want to make sure that everything is ready before I continue. But rest assured, when I announce it, you guys will be happy. All right, guys. So I will see you guys on Thursday. I think I'm going to do a reading on Thursday because I haven't done one in a while. So I think I will do a reading on Thursday. And then this Sunday, there will be no JB show on RBN because I will be doing mutual aid again. So if you guys would like to, if you guys are in the Orlando or Central Florida area and you guys would like to come out and meet me, come out and do mutual aid with me, right? Help out. Or just come out to meet and say hi. Then you guys can do that as well. Just follow Real. They do mutual aid work, and I'll be volunteering with them this weekend on Sunday. So yeah, if you guys would like to come out and say hi, feel free. Hey, I may be a little. Well, I don't know what the weather's going to be like, but if the weather's going to be cooler, then I won't be sweating. So come out, get a hug. Yeah. Do that. All the things. All right, guys. So thank you guys very much. Good to see all of you guys once again. And I do apologize for the late start and the shift, but we got through it. And so I am happy. Guys, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them. And when it comes to exploitation and imperialism and capitalism, just say no. All right. Love you guys very much. Mwah. And as Trevor said on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, good night and Godspeed. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you'd like to see any more, you can look here. Mwah.